thought we would have a go at this page from the spring edition of Colouring Heaven Presents. Now this book is available on its own. I will include the link in the description, or you can buy a bundle, spring, summer, autumn, winter, for a bit of a reduced price. So just to let you know, I have done a flip through the book already, so you can see what the pages are in here. Now I've picked this particular picture because it's a face, which can be quite scary, but it's grayscale. Now I learnt to colour faces, or I gained confidence in colouring faces by looking at grayscale designs. And the reason for that is you've got a lot of the shadows drawn in already, which means that you can follow this as you colour. And it can help you to know where to put the darker and lighter colours when you're doing your skin tone. I'm using Prismacolor today because I find those easier for faces, just because that's how I learnt. And so I know what colours I like to use. Now before I start, I have to decide, am I going to start with the lightest colours or the darkest colours? Now I usually start light and then put in the darker areas, but with the grayscale picture and using the Prismacolors, I'm a bit worried that if I start with the white, I might start to cover over the grayscale markings, and that might mean that I can't see what I'm doing. So I'm going to start not with my darkest colours, but with a sort of medium colours to start to put in some of the shadows, so that I'll still be able to see them as I go along. Hopefully that makes sense. We're only going to be concentrating on the face and neck to start with. We will do the other parts of the page as well, but just to let you know what we're doing. So I'm going to start with the Nectar. Now this is a colour that I used when I was following a video by Chris Cheng, which was a face, and as you can see, as I start to put it down, it covers over that dark colour. Now this is part of the reason that, as well as the fact that I learned with Prismacolor for using these, and I'm going to start to fade that off a bit here, because they will cover over this, because they're not very transparent, they will start to cover over these shadow marks. As I find, if I use a transparent pencil for colouring this sort of thing, I can just see grey through. But if I use one that's that you can't see through, then it seems to look better when you finish. But you can be the judge of that when I've finished and decide what you think. There we go. So I'm just going over these darkest marks. So I'm really just following the sort of grey scaling, and as it gets a bit lighter, I'm using a lighter touch and putting less down. Okay, so in the really darker areas here, I can put a bit more on, and then where it gets a little bit lighter, I can use a bit less. So here where it's really dark, I can use a bit more, a bit less along here, like that. Now we can see there are still some darker areas, like here, and that I haven't marked out yet, and we will extend this area. And this colour looks very, very harsh, doesn't it? Now down here, I'm not sure what's going on with the hair. It's really dark, but I think I'm going to colour that bit there is skin, and that bit there is hair. Okay. Now these are shadows, so really I feel that they should be quite grey. But we'll get there, we'll build up our colour a bit and put some greys on there later. So a little bit darker here as well, like that. And this looks quite messy, quite nasty, but that's fine, because what we have to remember is the Prismacolors smush and layer. So they do different jobs. So we can, I'm going to ignore the eyes at the minute too. We can blend them in and change the colour quite significantly. So that's our Nectar. Now I'm going to use the light peach. Okay, and we're going to actually go over a little bit what we've done, particularly the edges, and just start to bring our colour further in like this, to really make sure we're covering all of the areas that are marked as a little bit darker. Some of these don't need extending quite so much as others. Depends on the area, like that. So we've still got quite a big area here which is really light, so we're not going to use this pencil. We're going to use an even lighter one here. Now I realise this doesn't look like a skin colour at the moment, and that is always part of the challenge, I think, with doing a face, is that not only, I missed that bit, I'm actually going to go back to my nectar, is not only are you trying to get the light and shading right, but you're trying to get the colour right as well, and it all feels a little bit daunting. However, because the light and shading is here for us, then we can just concentrate a little bit more on the colour, and even then I don't worry too much about making it perfect. If you're really worried about the colour, do her face green, blue, pink, you know, red, a colour that isn't a skin tone, and then you can get used to doing all this shadowing without worrying about making sure that the skin is the right colour. Sorry, I'm going back and forth a little bit, because yeah, it's like you're doing two quite daunting things at once, colour and shading. So if you can do one without the other, it does make it feel a little bit easier. So yeah, some of my first faces weren't, well, my first ones were, but then later I experimented with different things. Okay, I think I'm happy with that. And now we're going to use the Deco Peach, and this one we're going to use over all of it, but we're going to sort of start part the way into the light peach, and you don't have to press too hard. We don't want it really dark. We are going to apply other colours as well to try to mix up our colour. Now usually when I do a face, I start with a base of beige, and as I said to you, I wanted to start with the darker areas first so that I could see where they were. So we're going to put some beige on after this, but this is basic layer. Now it looks a little bit messy, it's all okay, it will come together. Now as I say, with Prisma it's quite easy to smush it all up and get it working, so don't need to worry too much at this point. Her eyes are so pretty. Now you can, if you look at her eyes, well, if you're colouring you might struggle, but you can see that there's a white line across, that if you were doing it yourself and you didn't have that grayscale and marks in, you would do that with a white gel pen. You know, putting some shine in really brings it to life. So there we've got a very base picture. You can still, it still doesn't look the right colour, but we've got started. We're going to put a beige on here now. If I can find it, here it is. So I'm going to put my beige all over the top, and it will just darken everything down a little bit and just change the colour subtly. And then we will work at it some more, add some different colours, because there's a lot of different colours in a skin tone, and this is turning it a bit yellowy. You can add red, you can add like a Venetian red, you can add a sort of greenish colour, like a more of an olive green, to change the tones of the skin if necessary. And we're going to add some grey and purple now as well. So this has just darkened her up a bit, so she actually looks like she's been coloured in a little bit more. Now I'm going to concentrate on the really dark areas now. We're going to get some grey down and some purple. Let's start with the purple. We use the greyed lavender, so we're not going like mad purpley purple, but I think I might do the grey first actually. Sorry, back and forth. I think the cool grey is the best. I haven't brought the right sharpener through. This is a 50% cool grey, and we're going to go really in these really dark areas with this one, so you can put it down quite dark here. And this line it's quite important just to show where the chin ends and the neck begins, sort of thing. So we're actually colouring over grey with grey. Having put skin tone underneath, it might seem a little bit counterintuitive. Maybe it is, I don't know. And so these are the really dark areas. I'm hoping that having the nectar underneath, it just gives it a little bit more of a skin tony feel rather than just really dark. It starts to just put in those sort of really shadowy areas. And another tip I would give you is to look at people's faces and to look at your own or pictures of faces. We're going to go in with our grey lavender now, and we're just going to extend these grey areas a little bit with this grey lavender. And just observe, and that is a really good way to learn. Observing. Did I put any grey around this eye? Don't think I did. I'm gonna, sorry, 50% cool grey. So yes, looking at other people's faces, seeing how they look, makes such a big difference to getting a good picture. I find it difficult because I can't visualise, so I can't look at a face and then remember it in my head. That just doesn't happen with me. But I can look at pictures and keep them in front of me while I'm colouring. That's what I have to do. It depends what works for you. Even if you can visualise, I think faces are some of the most difficult things to do. So it might be worth, you know, having some picture guides for yourself. So that just sort of warms it, I think, a little bit. Now we're going to go back to our nectar. We're just going to extend those shadowy areas with our nectar. So I'm just going to come into the sort of edge. My aim now is to try and cover up where the grayscale is. So where I want it grey, that's fine, but I don't want it looking like we've started with a grayscale picture and try and hide it. And it sounds a bit counterintuitive really, but if it can look like I've done it, that's good, isn't it? That's a bit harsh there, but I can show you how to get rid of that. You can erase it, but we can do it with our pencil, our colours. Now we are going to use our light peach. This is where we need to really, we work to smooth out the nectar and really extend the colour. So I want it to look a lot more colourful. That makes sense. Sort of like this area here. You see how it's really helping to smush all the colours together. Now I usually make that bit a little bit darker down there. I can see this bit's a bit darker, so with this bit lighter, you can see she's beginning to look more colourful. You just have to take a little bit of time with the grayscale image to get it working, get it looking colourful. This is all quite dark, so I'm actually going to completely cover that bit. And because I'm now smushing, her skin is looking a lot smoother, I think. Now you've still got a few quite light areas. This bit here, look, I said, just keep going over it, and eventually you sort of almost take it back up with that pencil. windy and rainy outside today. It's nice being inside. I have been out for a very wind-blown-y walk. We went along the canal. We didn't see many critters. We're a little bit late. I'm just going to brush that off. It's getting a bit crummy. You can see how her colour is beginning to show up as we're just adding these layers. And we're still seeing some of the grayscale coming through, which is fine, but I just want it to, you know, look a bit more like my own colour. And then I'm going to use the light peach and go over all of those lighter areas. No, yeah, that's the light peach. What's this then? Oh, this is the deco peach and this is the light peach. Huh. I think I got them around the wrong way when I was telling you them before. Oh, I've got to blow my nose, sorry. There we go. Now, so this is the light. So I'm just trying to blend it into the edge of the head. Now, if it's looking a little bit too yellowy, we can tone that down a little bit in a few areas if we need to. I really want to make sure that I've got quite a nice, decent amount of pencil on here so it does look a lot more colourful. So this is going over all of the pale areas. Sometimes I leave them with a little bit more white in them, but because of it being grayscale, I just feel like I want to cover it all. I don't know whether that sounds a bit strange, but anyway. Cool, what a wind. That wants to rattle the windows. Now, what I find at this point, she looks a bit yellowy. We can go in with a little bit of pink and just slightly change her skin colour. So I tend to use a bit of deco pink and just go over all of it, just with a light layer. And it can just, I think, make her look a little bit less yellow. Now, some people like to do a sort of blush on the cheek. I prefer to leave the cheeks pale so that you can see the shadowing around, so they look like they're catching the light. It's sort of up to you, really. This sort of neutralises the beige and the peachy colours a little bit more. Particularly building up on those edges there, sort of on here. And around the edges. Now, part of what looks very grayscale at the moment still is her lips. So I think if we do those, then that's going to make quite a difference to how the whole thing looks, and her eyes. So for her lips, I'm thinking, just seeing if that is that underneath? Yeah. So I'm going to do, going to keep it quite subtle. So I'm going to use the blush pink first and just do a layer all over. Quite light, so I can still see where it's meant to be darker and lighter. And then I'm going to get the processed red. Where is it? it is, and put in the darker areas. So we've got quite a bit of shadow here. And then here. I'm just marking in the slightly darker areas, like that. Then we can go back in with our blush pink and just smush that up a little bit. It's not quite so harsh. Back to our processed red, add a little bit more. This time I'm going to try and smush it a bit more. And then back to my rose blush pink, sorry, to just blend it a bit. Okay, now I'm going to use the pink to sort of finish it off. I don't know if you can hear that rain and wind. Now there's a really shady bit in the centre here, which I'm going to do with the grey that I used for her skin tone, so 50% cool grey, but I'm just going to use it quite gently. There she is. Now her eyes, I quite like to do her eyes in blue. Now there's lots of different blues in this set. I quite like a nice striking blue. The true blue is quite nice, actually. We'll start with that. We'll see how it works out. Is that it? Yeah, true blue. So now her eyes are quite dark, as you can see. What we need to do is try and avoid any little white bits, and there are loads. So just going to do the best I can here. Put some blue in there. Do the same on this side. Like that. Not too bad, isn't it? Now if you've accidentally coloured over some of the bits you want left white, you can use your white gel pen to just add those in. I think I'm wondering whether to go darker, but I don't think I will. I think I'm just going to leave it like that. So there is her face. Okay. Now her hair. Now, I think I am going to start with a layer of beige. So I often start like a blonde hair. So I'm going to go all over the whole hair with the beige, but quite lightly. I need to come out because it's quite a lot of hair. It actually starts down here. So, and it helps me to distinguish what's hair, what's flowers, what's, you know, quite what's going on really. Oh, it's 12 o'clock. And see, that's hair. See, it's sometimes a little bit tricky to see what's quite going on and where. And what we can do once we've done this light layer is then go to our darkest layer. And then there's a bit in there and a bit there and a bit there. It's quite a lot of hair, isn't there? So if you have some grayscale pictures and you want to colour a face that isn't grayscale, you could always find one where the hair and their face is in a similar position and use that grayscale marking to help you work out where to put the shadows in the particular picture that you're doing. You know? If you want her to have really light blonde hair, you could just leave it here, you know, with just the beige. But we're going to add a bit more colour to it. Our little King Charles Spaniel, I think that's what it is. My pencil feels like it's running out. There we go, turn it over. Now we'll be able to come back and neaten this all up after. These are very pretty drawings. Dessy Georgieff. I don't know, I'm not familiar with her. I assume her, I don't know. Right, so there is the basic hair. Now I'm going to go to my browns, and I'm actually going to go quite dark for these shadowy areas. I think I'm going to go dark umber, it's a new one, and just put it in this space here where it's actually really, really, really black. There, just so we've got a bit of colour there rather than just being black. And then any areas that are drawn in as black lines. Sorry, I've gone a bit square, haven't I? Like there. And this line here. I've got a little bit here. Oops, just goes out for lines. That wasn't the plan, but never mind. It's quite nice having so many strands drawn like this. Sometimes hair can be drawn in quite an unrealistic way and it can be a little bit tricky to work out how to colour it, but this is pretty good. So it makes it a little bit easier. I'm going a bit lighter in the areas that aren't quite so black. That bit is along there, along that face line. And then there, and a bit along here too. But also look under here, quite dark there. And there, under here. Okay, now I'm going to go for a lighter, so we can grab our chocolate. Yum, right, it's not very sharp. But I'm just going to do some of the other sort of darker areas where there's a bit of shadow here and there. We can also just put a few strands in. You know, it doesn't, although her hair, I want it to be fairly light. If you look at someone with blonde hair, it isn't just yellow. There are lots of colours in it there. My son's coming down for lunch. Just told him to start lunch without me. And some shadow around here. I can hear him singing now. There we go. More just sort of strands here and there. And some shadow around here, look. Just extend the shadowy areas. It looks a bit rough and ready. It is. Oh, doorbell. Then we have the light umber. Your husband's getting it. That's good. Just filling in some of these shadowy areas and listening to see who's at the door. I think it sounds like it's a parcel for someone on a Sunday. Strange. So I'm just doing the last sort of dark areas that I can see, strands and bits and pieces, and as you can see, rough and ready. Now it can be tempting to try and to think that you want to smooth this out, but actually being hair and strands, having lines is a good idea. There we go. Now we can go for something richer and slightly blonder, and I'm thinking I'm going to put some sand all over it now, and I think that might make it look nice and bright. And you can always go back to any other colour and put some more strands in if you think it needs it, but I just think this colour is going to make it look really pretty, and that's how I want her to look, pretty. Like that. And it isn't so yellow that it's looking fake yellow. I mean, it doesn't matter because hair can be any colour you choose to dye it. But I just noticed this bit here where I haven't put any darker colour. But I think it's okay now. Putting this over the top is smushing a bit of the colour a little bit. But I'm okay with that. You can always draw strands back in. You can also see them still because it's not that thick. It's a nice warm colour. But I'm going to, I might come back and do a bit more on her face and hair at the end. I find sometimes you finish the picture and then it doesn't quite look right and you want to come back and do a bit more. Now her eyebrows, I'm tempted to just leave them because I think they look very pretty, but they're just grey, so, or black. So I feel like maybe I should put some of this colour on top of them just to make them look a bit paler, because if she's a natural blonde, her eyebrows wouldn't be that dark. And also I feel like I want to colour it, if that makes sense. That's why I went out of the lines up there. So, yeah, we'll see. We'll see what's going on. Can't be much longer. I've got to have my lunch in time to do my Skype call this afternoon. It's Sunday. We always do a family Skype on a Sunday. Now I've coloured that hair colour, but actually you might see her sculpt through there, but I'm not going to be too finicky about it because actually I like this warmth that this is giving her. Reminds me I've got another grayscale book with faces in and it's really pretty. I should grab it and have a go. Nightingales, it's called, by Wee Shanong. I've I've got a flip through on my channel if you're interested in having a book with all grayscale faces. I found it really good practice. I really didn't think I'd like grayscale pictures at all, but for this sort of thing it's such good, it's really helpful. The finished look, it doesn't always look as pretty because you can usually just see the grayscale through, you know, so I don't think it looks as pretty as doing it from scratch yourself, but I think the guidance can just be so useful, especially for a learner, you know. And as I say, with if you use a pencil that isn't very transparent, then that can help hide the grayscale a little bit more. Also, if you just layer it up more, and then you get, you know, it looks a little bit more like you did it rather than it being printed on the paper sort of thing. And some grayscale is more defined than others. There she is. I'm going to leave that for today. I'm going to come back and finish the rest of the page, and as I say, I might do a bit more work on her eyes, on her face. Yeah, her eyes, you see, they've got quite a bit of grey in there, and I don't think there's any need to cover that with any more grey, if you know what I mean. If I was colouring it and there was no grey in there, I'd put a bit in, because the white of the eye isn't totally white, but I don't need to do that. I am going to run a bit of sand over her eyebrows. There we go. They look a little bit less grayscale-y. There we go. So there she is so far. I've got to go and have lunch. But yeah, I will finish it in a second video. But thank you for watching today. Hope you have a super day and happy colouring.